there, fictional friends, and welcome to another episode of Fully Booked. I'm Meaghan.
And I'm Shirin.
And it's our first episode of the year.
Happy 2026.
Many hopes for everybody that it is better than 2025 was. Across the board for everyone.
Although we're not off to a good start with the whole Venezuela situation, but
we're not, but we're trying.
Maybe better luck next year, huh?
We can't keep saying that every year. We can't, like 2024, we were like, maybe 2025 will be better.
No, it was terrible.
And then it was worse.
It's just like that gif of like the dumpster fire, you know, and
Yes.
It's like sailing away and it's just going, what is even happening here? That's just life right now.
It's so true. Oh God. That's why we're keeping things fun over here.
Trying to.
Yeah. And we realized that since, we had spoken about it, I think last month as well, since 2026 is definitely shaping up to have quite a few really big adaptations dropping, whether it's like theatrical or a series or whatever the case may be. And now that we're into January, I'm sure we're going to get even more release dates, even of things that were promised but didn't have like a confirmed date and things like that. We're going to start getting those 100% across the board.
And we've already got big ones coming out in January.
Agreed, 100%. So with all of that in mind, we thought we would maybe like take a think and have a chat about the idea of book to film versus book to television. And particularly, obviously, with how streaming has kind of dominated everything over the last like almost decade at this point, and the majority of content and things like that, kind of what that landscape looks like now, what the positives and negatives are of having a more expanded story in some cases with a television adaptation versus something like just one film, let's say, adaptation. What is good about that? What is bad about that? When does it work in some instances and maybe when it's not as effective, I guess,
Yep.
Yeah. Before we kick all of that off, let's do our first of the year of 2026. What is on that stand? So, Shirin, what are you reading right now?
Well, in true, I guess, new me form, I found myself, because I just finished a book that we had been kind of sent by the author, Sasha Preston. And so I was kind of like, all right, like I've got like a giant stack of like TBR, like fantasies and romanticities and whatever, you name it.
Like you do.
Stack is massive from, I think I spoke about this on one of our episodes, like, great book buying year in 2025, not a great book reading year.
Not a good one.
So I'm like, okay, thinking about, the fact that I had to get out of like kind of a book hangover a little bit. And like, I am going to read books this year. I picked up it's a sci-fi thriller, actually, not my usual. It's called The One. By John Mars.
Okay.
And this was written in 2016, so 10 years old now. And it's basically, so far from what I gather, there's a number of character POVs. And these are all characters who in this setting there's like a dating website that exists or a matching website that exists where if you send in a swab of your DNA, a little bit like 23andMe, this company will match you to your soulmate.
Okay.
And at this point, and it can match you to anybody. Like it could be somebody of the opposite sex and of the same sex and you didn't realize that you were homosexual or something, or whatever. It can be somebody in Australia when you live in England. It can be somebody who's 15 years older than you, 15 years younger than you. So yeah, there's been like 1.5 billion like success stories and everybody's doing it at this point.
Wow.
And so these few characters that this is centered around, it's already started off that they're all in a bit of a mess. Like one of them got matched and found out that her match is dead.
Oh, wow.
Another one, he's actually a serial killer. So he's murdering women and he's signed up for this match website and he's like, whatever, like, let me check it out. I can go like kill her basically. And it turns out that he's been matched to a cop, and not just a cop, like a detective.
Oh
like
my God.
Senior sergeant anyways. So I'm just like, wow, let us get into this wild ride and find out what's going on.
Wow, that sounds nuts.
Yeah, it's kind of wild so far. So I'm just like, okay, like let's read this. And apparently it was a TV show that was made in 2021. This all takes place in England,
Hmm.
and the show came out in the UK, but on Netflix.
Okay.
Um, it doesn't have very good reviews, but I'll watch it.
I was going to say I'd be curious to see it like after you've finished the book, so that way
Yeah,
you'll have a pretty good idea of like, is it because this is like it cuts a lot of like story bits or
who knows?
pieces
Or
or
maybe they
something?
changed the characters a bit too much. I'm not sure.
Maybe. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I am actually reading at the moment a book that's being published on January 20th, the date that
Mm.
you guys are hearing this. It's an ARC that we were sent via Orbit, if I'm not mistaken. It is How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days by an author
Oh
named
my God, what?
by an author named Jessie Silva. Um, this is very cozy fantasy. It's so cute. It's got a lot of cottagecore vibes for folks who are like really into that with their cozy fantasy. So this follows um, a young halfling named Pansy. She has just inherited her grandmother's cottage after she's passed away, and she's chosen to go and upkeep the cottage and manage everything in the like on the property. When she arrives, she encounters a goblin named Wren who has already taken up residence in the cottage for apparently quite a bit of time at the behest of their aunt, who apparently
Okay.
told them or left them the cottage as well. So it basically becomes the most awkward roommate situation in the world,
Oh
and
my God.
both of them feel that they have a claim on the cottage, and so they are quote unquote living in harmony, but really they're both trying to oust one another from the cottage and find a way to get rid of the other one by doing various different things in order to like bother one of them enough to do it. It's like a combination. It's got like cozy fantasy, but it's got like a lot of kind of interesting commentary because like the goblins are very there's a lot of prejudice against them. They're thought to be like, you know, like lesser than to a degree,
Mm,
and Ren and all of their family have like a lot of feelings about halflings, and then versus Pansy, of course, and all of the halflings who have a lot of feelings about the goblins and how horrible they are and things like that. So both of them are kind of making discoveries about one another.
mm,
And obviously there's like, you know, like a romantic kind of subplot that forms
mm.
through that and through them sort of living in close proximity to one another and discovering things about each of them as like a different species essentially that they didn't
Right.
really expect. I don't know, I'm not quite halfway through it yet, but it's so cute.
It
it's
sounds really cute.
it is. It is. It's really sweet. I'm really liking like the kind of the joking kind of subplot and like kind of the banter between the two of them and the way that they play off of one another and the way that they're not pranking each other, but the way that they're trying to make life as difficult for the other one as
Mm.
possible. But there's this really sweet little thing where they're also obviously attracted to one another and neither of them want to admit it. It's really cute.
And
Um,
she's a what?
she's a halfling
Okay.
pansy and
Okay.
Ren is a goblin.
A goblin. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
Got
it.
it.
Who
I was like,
uses
that would be a hard sell on like human goblin territory, but I guess if you've got a halfling, then yes.
yeah, she's considered she's like they describe them as a halfling and then the goblins are like other than basically and
Mm.
Ren I mean like I don't know if it's because of I don't think it's because of their species, but they use non-binary pronouns. So
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's adorable. I'm
It
really
sounds
liking
cute.
it. It's one of those things like, you know, like it's cold and horrible outside right now and I'm reading it
Yeah.
and I'm just like, this is nice. This is like
Oh, yeah. I hear
making
you.
making me feel like it's a different time of year when it's not
Mm.
awful
Oh
and
yeah, like
snowing.
I'm like, okay, so next on my list to read is People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry because the
Yes.
adaptation is dropping like next week. And so I'm
Yay.
like, all right, I'm gonna try and like get some of this read through
Yeah,
by the time and I'm like, oh yes, a vacation sounds lovely right about now with the
it's true.
Arctic cold we're experiencing, you know.
It's true. Canadians will understand, but everybody
Horrible.
else is like,
Just
"What are you
horrible.
talking about? It's terrible, everyone."
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, so it's really sweet. It's really fun. Also, that's it. Side note, I can't wait for that People We Meet on Vacation adaptation because I've read the book and I really want to see this. I love both of the leads that are
Mm,
starring in this film adaptation.
I don't know anything about anything to
Oh,
do
it's
with
gonna be
this.
great. We're
Nothing.
we're we're gonna talk about it in like a week. So
I know. Yeah,
I'm
I
looking
know
forward to that.
nothing about the book plot, nothing about the show, nothing. Because if any of y'all have been listening, you know I'm a boomer and I do not sit on social media. So I
Yep.
rely on Meaghan to give me the information.
Yeah, she only has Facebook because she's 85 years old.
Which at this point is just, I realized yesterday as I was scrolling, is just filled with ads for crap that I don't want. And I'm
Oh
like, wow,
God,
I don't
yeah.
even know why I bother with this anymore.
No, if anything, you'd at least get other recommendations from other places.
I know, right?
Anyway. Okay, let's get into it. Let's talk about adaptations as a whole, but let's talk about, I guess, the merits and sort of the positives and negatives of both film
Mm,
adaptations and television adaptations. Because television adaptations, let's be honest, up until about 15 years ago, if I'm stretching it, were not a regular thing. Like
no,
book
and
to TV adaptations were not a regular thing.
well, like we had a conversation about this, right? When we had our Water for Elephants
Mhm.
episode. And the stark difference between 10 to 15 years ago of a book adaptation, it was always a movie.
Yes.
It was always a massive
Oh
cast, a
god,
big
yeah.
release, huge PR, huge marketing like behind it. And so to your point, we've kind of experienced this evolution over the last decade and a half where now it's more often than not the streaming services that are picking up these adaptations and they're turning it into TV shows.
Yes, very often. Not always, but
Not
very
always.
frequently. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just been insane to kind of see like the differences, right? Because even if I'm looking through even something like a basic list on somewhere like IMDb, right?
Mm,
That's got like a bunch of like, oh, book to film adaptations or whatever. Everything that I'm looking at that is older than, let's say, 10 years,
yep.
right? If I'm like being generous, are things that were absolutely massive
Yep.
when they were released. So, like, number one on the list is like the Shawshank Redemption.
Huge.
Right? Even something, so this was 2011, but even something as far back as The Help, Stand By
Oh yeah.
Me from 1986, obviously Lord of the Rings
Lord of the Rings. Harry
is
Potter.
a big one in there. The Green Mile, Hunger Games, Chronicles of Narnia when they did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, for instance,
And
obviously.
Prince Caspian.
Yes, Princess Bride, Mrs. Doubtfire, Jurassic Park. Like these
Mrs.
were,
Doubtfire was a book.
apparently it was, yeah.
Cool.
Oh, interesting. These were as exactly to what you said. These were massive. The advertising campaigns were absolutely insane for them. They had huge casts. They tended to have larger scale budgets as a rule, and
Hmm.
there was a lot of, not necessarily, I don't want to say care because that sounds like a weird word for it, but like there was a lot of thought that was put into adapting these properties. And then it was like we hit this this weird period of time in the early and mid 2000s where every single like book adaptation was garbage, basically.
Yeah,
Not
and I
all of it.
kind
I
of
think like I'm exaggerating, but
not
you know what I
all
mean.
of them, but there was definitely this weird, like we kind of like hit this like screeching halt with them all of a sudden.
We did.
And I wonder, so like as I'm listening to you talking, like I'm wondering if there's like something in this where if you think about like everything you just mentioned, I'm thinking Da Vinci Code, I'm thinking, you name it, like these huge releases that
Yep.
came out,
Yeah.
these were not based on like social media data or anything or like buzz. This was literally around book sales on that book,
Bestsellers.
right? Like
Yes, true. Yeah.
bestseller
Yeah.
lists that then got picked up and made into a huge movie with huge casts.
It's true. Yeah.
And then there was this like screeching halt where we all realized that you are never ever going to be able to make every single book reader happy with your
No.
adaptation. And so it's almost like the studios, after like throwing all this money and being like, let's go, and thinking that because they picked up a big title and it had a big following, that they had like a surefire success under their
Yeah.
belt,
Yeah.
and they realized that the book fans are actually very picky, very particular. It was like we came to this screeching halt in the mid 2000s where they were like, I'm not putting any more money at this anymore because people just want to pick it apart scene by scene and we will never ever make everybody happy.
Yeah.
So you know what? Screw you.
Yeah. And then piggybacking off of that, I wonder if that led, again, within like a 5 to 7 year period, with as streaming services became a thing and as
Mm-hmm.
they were created and started
Yeah.
to gain any kind of traction in the first place, if that caused them to be like, hey, we have an opportunity here to take these properties and to expand them, because we're doing things where we're like, oh, hey, we can make a television show out of this instead. And that obviously, in turn, gives us the opportunity to expand on the plot points that are usually, like, a lot more expensive than one film allows for, to expand on character development,
Yeah.
which again gives way for many of the, particularly, like, not just the main, like maybe one or two characters, but like the tertiary characters that you get
Yep.
in the story, to be able to have their own plot lines, which is something that you often get in books, particularly book series, but even in individual books a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
time, right? That you were just not possible with a film. It was just not a thing that could happen. And with the idea that, like, these networks started to be like, hey, we're going to do this, I wonder if it gave way to an idea that, like, making a good, expansive television adaptation was actually a possibility. And there's almost a part of me that wonders, like, I know that there were some really, really major, obviously, really, really major networks that picked up on really big ones, things like obviously Game of Thrones and the like,
Mm.
right? Of course, if you think back about like that
Yeah,
kind of thing, when
HBO. Yeah.
exactly, and like HBO taking a property like that and adapting it. But I don't know, I don't know what you think about this, but I feel like, weirdly, a lot of this kind of came from the YA sphere, because I'm thinking of things like The 100, Pretty
Yes.
Little Liars, The
Yes.
Vampire Diaries. Like,
Yes.
I'm thinking of these networks like the CW that were just like, hey, we're going to take this and we're going to make it into our own thing, and it won't necessarily be super faithful, but we're still going to do something with it that an audience will
And we're
enjoy.
gonna make 100 seasons of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I wonder, to a degree, like, if it did, it like start in that sphere and then it kind of adapted or evolved, I guess, into something else.
Well, I don't think you're wrong. Like, because if you look at, like, okay, if we take the CW for, like, just bear with me a second.
Yeah.
Like the CW, like they had shows like One Tree Hill and
Yeah.
like that kind of thing. And the OC, I think the OC was a CW show. Like a lot
Yeah.
of, I'm not sure. Anyway, a
It
lot
was
of these
back when
shows.
it was the WB for a
Right.
while there.
So a lot
Yeah.
of these shows that were like teen focused and whatnot, with a huge following of people watching it like faithfully week by week, new episodes dropping, and they were like, well, we need content. We
Yeah.
need content that's going to feed this type of audience, because we've created these types of shows and now we need to keep it going because our audience wants to watch, teen shows like YA or whatever, and we need 100 seasons of it to keep people happy. So what do we pick up? Well, we pick up series of books in the YA sphere, to your point. And then I think, listening to kind of your point here, what then happened was all these streaming sites, because they all needed content and they were all competing with each other, they were like, hey, that sounds good. Let me also make a whole bunch of book
Yeah.
adaptations into TV shows. So, like, this is where I'm starting to think about books like Normal People by Sally Rooney.
Mm-hmm.
That was one book, that was a standalone book, and it was quite, like,
It
it was
wasn't very
like,
big, but
it
they
was
made
not very
what,
big.
8 episodes, 10 episodes of that
10 episodes out
show?
of it. Fantastic
So good.
show.
So
They
good.
they executed it perfectly, and so they showed, and this is just one example where you could actually do the opposite, where we've been seeing for the longest time series of books made into like one concise movie, like
Yeah.
a series of unfortunate events, was
Oof, that was a rough film.
very poorly executed when it
Yeah.
came out. That was like a perfect example of huge PR, huge cast, you name it, huge following, readers, myself included.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
when the book came out, it was like, what the hell was that? Sorry,
Yeah.
when the movie came out, it was like, what the hell was that?
Yep.
And so what the streaming sites were able to do was they were like, hey, I'm going to flip this. I'm going to take one standalone book and I'm going to turn it into a series, or a limited series or
Yep.
something. And they
Yes.
did it so well.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that is also a really good point, because I feel like the limited series part of things for single or singular
Yeah.
books, I should say, work incredibly well. Like you mentioned, Normal People, that's one that, again, they were able to take and turn into, that's it, 8 or 10 episodes. It was something along those lines, but
Hmm.
so incredibly excellently made. What am I thinking of? Something like Little Fires
Oh
Everywhere.
my God, that was so good.
So
Yeah.
good. And that one is 8 episodes,
Yeah.
that show. And
Hmm.
again, they were able to take something like that and turn it into that. And you didn't need multiple seasons. You didn't need a follow-up. It was brilliant for what it was. But
Hmm.
this is just something, I think that was like Hulu or something. This was just something that I don't know what it is that they've managed to do, but they've managed to like kind of find like that lightning in a bottle kind of thing, where it
Mm.
doesn't mean that every adaptation is good. Obviously, we know that that's
No.
not true, but a lot of streaming services, because they've been able to, or been smart enough to pivot and say, okay, well, this is one book, I don't need to make 4 seasons out of it, but I can make one season instead of one film of like 6 to 8 episodes out of it to tell the entire story, so no one's mad about it, you know.
Yeah, and I think that that's like almost like, and I'm using air quotes here, the sweet spot for a
Yeah.
lot of these books. And it depends which ones, right? Like, so we were talking the other week about The Housemaid, that was a standalone, well, it's not a standalone book, but you know what I mean? It's one book, and then they made a movie
It
adaptation.
could easily have been
It
one
could
book, by the way.
easily, side note, my mom started reading the second one, and I'm
Oh
getting
yeah.
a play-by-play of it, and I don't think it's great. Anyway,
Oh,
uh, it just
oh,
sounds like it's just a rehash of the first one, like in a different way. Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is that, we're still seeing cases where it's like, okay, one book, one movie.
yeah, it happens. Yeah.
And it happens. And like, I'm happy with that because I didn't need The Housemaid to be 8 episodes long. They
No.
did enough with the time that they had. It was wrapped up in a little bow,
Yep.
tied up. Okay, we're happy. We can move on with our day. But depending on what they've picked up, so again, we talk about Normal People. There's been Netflix adaptations. I'm blanking here. The only one that keeps coming to mind is Shadow and Bone, but they had multiple seasons of that one.
Yes.
I love that show. I know a lot of people did not like it, but they did a great job with that one, where they took a duology and a trilogy and they smushed it into, is it 2 or 3 seasons of the show?
I don't remember, but yes, I see what you mean, that they were somehow able to almost seamlessly combine those
Yes.
universes together, those worlds together, I should say. I'm
Yes,
sure that they probably in the Grishaverse like existed in the same
they
universe.
did.
However, they found a way to they just
Bring the
found a way
characters
to
together.
bring the
Yeah.
characters into the same scenario and have you not be like, what the hell is this? Have you just like,
Yeah.
uh-huh, okay, cool, cool, cool,
Yep.
cool, cool. Yep,
I'm
great.
I'm on board. I like
Everybody's
it. I
here.
love it. Let's move on. Yeah. And so, my next point with that is the the really tricky thing, and like, to use your expression again, the lightning in the bottle has not yet been captured, I think, for fantasy and like world building shows, because it's so hard to do
Oh
when you're
gosh.
trying to build a world and like bring in two separate audiences, right? The ones who have no idea what this is about and they just want to watch the show, who are interested in fantasy shows or movies, but who have not read the book. And so now
Yes.
I gotta like exposition
I
dump
gotta
on
exposition
you.
dump them. Yeah, exactly.
But then you've got the fans of the book, like the diehard fans, who are like, yeah, I know all that. Can we spend more time on the character interactions? But the showmakers are like, well, shit, I can't because I have to do something here. And so I feel like, and I don't know if you agree, but aside from Shadow and Bone, it's very hard to think of a lot of fantasy series that have like adaptations that have hit the nail on the head.
I mean, I guess I couldn't speak to all of them because like I haven't read any of the Game of Thrones books. Like I haven't read
Oh,
any of them,
you
so I
haven't read any of them?
no.
I've read
No.
all of them,
No.
and they did do a good job, to be fair, in Game of
Yeah.
Thrones. But
My understanding from everybody who has read them is that they actually fell off after they
they
no
did.
longer had material to
Correct.
use as a
Correct.
basis for the show.
Correct. Game of Thrones is kind of one that I almost want to put aside for our discussion because it was a phenomenon. It was so big. There were
Yeah.
so many people invested in that show,
Yes.
and people who knew nothing about the books, but because they made it so true to the book, they managed to capture an entire new audience and generations of people
They did,
watching
yeah.
this show.
Yeah.
I've read the books, I've watched the entire show. I could never ever revisit any of this because it's
No.
so heavy, it's so involved. I can't even think about
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
I think most people feel that way, particularly about the final season, that they're like, "Oh,
It was terrible.
I'm never going back to that again." And we really saw the difference in it. So again, that's
Mm,
it. It's just, I guess it's one of those. I guess it's one of those interesting things where you're like, some of them like almost do it. Again, exactly
mm,
what you said. Maybe some of them have almost succeeded,
mhm.
have come this close
Yeah.
to managing to do that thing with a television adaptation where they've like almost gotten there, but not quite. But there have definitely been some film adaptations
Mm,
that, maybe to a degree, in spite of certain aspects of them not being maybe perfect, like
mm,
play by play adaptations, have
mm.
managed to be incredible,
Yes.
for what they are, and have managed to capture an audience both that enjoys them, both from people who have read the books versus people who are just watching the film.
Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Yeah. That
Lord of
but
the Rings.
yeah,
Like
it's a perfect example.
it's a
And
perfect example that again, the Lord of the Rings is a trilogy and they released 3 movies and they did a great job.
they did.
It's the one thing that like in this type of discussion where you're like, is the adaptation even worth doing from like a book like that? Lord of the Rings. There you go. Peter Jackson did it.
Yeah. He did it, and
Yeah.
he did it properly.
Yeah.
That's exactly true. And I mean, even in like a one-off situation, if I consider things that are like considered beloved, I think even by people who have read the books, something like The Green Mile
Mm,
is very,
yeah.
I think loved, or universally pretty loved and appreciated by folks who have read that book, and folks
Mm,
who obviously have just watched the film, because it's impossible for it not to be. Oh god, something like The Princess Bride gets an
mm,
equal amount of love, generally speaking, just as a rule. Rest in peace, Rob Reiner.
mm.
All of those, like these types of things they did. And it's true that I don't know what it was. Maybe there was just a period of time where they were making these one-off adaptations, but they were doing it properly. I don't know.
I don't know, and we're entering this really interesting era here where like there's so many, like you just mentioned it, there's so many adaptations coming out this year, whether it be movies, theatrical releases,
of like
TV shows, like
of like
whatever.
large scale stuff,
Large.
we
Yeah.
know that adaptation of the Odyssey is coming out
Oh
in
god.
July, and we've, to be fair, I will say, we've not really gotten any large scale adaptations of Homer's Iliad and the Odyssey basically ever. And so there is probably something, to a degree, to be said for something like this happening now, and like the
Quite the
scale of what we will
undertaking.
be seeing. Correct. Yeah. Something like the potential new cinematic universe that's being created by Greta Gerwig for the Chronicles of Narnia, with The
Correct.
Magician's Nephew coming out this year, a continuation of things with obviously Sunrise on the Reaping getting an adaptation this year, and things of that sort
Dune
as
Part
well.
3, is that coming out this year?
I think it is. I don't know if
Yeah.
there's, I don't
Is
know
it
if I've
this year or
seen a
next
confirmed
year?
date. I think it might be this year.
Mm,
Regardless, that falls into that
that's
category, on
huge.
the way these massive, massive, massive scale, where we did talk about this previously, how like there used to be this huge scale to a film or theatrical release
Mm,
adaptations that are happening. And I feel like we're maybe headed towards a resurgence of that.
it kind of feels that way. The one thing I've been seeing, and I wonder if you're seeing this as well, is a lot of like, producers, showmakers, whatever, they are not touching the giant fantasy
No,
series with a 10-foot pole.
no.
Like, I think the rights to A Court of Thorns and Roses had been bought and tabled, and now they're up for grabs again, and they've been rebought and tabled, and like
Yep.
same thing for Fourth Wing. They've
Yep.
been, apparently there's an adaptation in the works by Michael B. Jordan.
It's
We'll
his
see.
production company that's working on it, but yeah, no, that's exactly true. It's just, I think they know. Obviously, everybody wants a piece of that pie because they see what the fandom is like, and they see the massive appeal that can
Yeah.
come from making an adaptation of
But if it's
properties like
not
this.
done perfectly, oh my god.
And the problem with that is that it never will be. It's not possible. There will
No.
be casting choices that different people disagree with or agree with. There will be different maybe plot points that shift slightly when you're doing something like a screen adaptation. It's going to look different, feel different in some capacity that people will not agree with. There might be character changes to a degree that again people will not be happy with. It is impossible to
But
please everyone.
it's also an interpretation
Correct.
to a certain extent, right? Like we had this discussion. An adaptation is always an interpretation at the end of the day. And
Yeah.
so the
I
way
think we're
that
going to
I see a character will
yeah.
not be the same way that the director would see a
No.
character.
No, and exactly with that point. I think that's something that maybe we're going to see a little bit this year with something like Wuthering Heights. I
Oh,
feel
I
like
can't wait for that one.
that's going to be that's going to be a really strange one. And it's going to bring up probably a decent amount of discourse. I mean, God, the trailer brought up discourse and it was just like a
Oh,
2-minute trailer, just simply because of the stylization of it, the casting choices. I'm sure how the story will be interpreted.
yeah,
And like, think about this to a degree, right? This is an adaptation that we're getting. We watch a trailer, we get to the end of the trailer, the title card pops up and it's got quotation marks around it. And we're like, oh, what does that mean? And
what does
that's
that mean?
basically Emerald Fennel telling you this is my interpretation of Wuthering Heights. If you don't like it, I don't
Mhm.
really care, but like this is my interpretation. It doesn't mean that it's a page for page
Yeah.
adaptation. This is my interpretation of this story.
And like in fairness, something, and we have had this discussion, but something like Wuthering Heights, something that's been done and redone, or this is the first time it's being redone, like, and it's an old book. I think there's a certain level of like forgiveness that's involved
Yeah.
in these like interpretations. So
Well, we say
there's a
that, but Frankenstein got a lot of flack from the literary people.
okay, but that doesn't make sense. It actually followed the book.
It didn't. And I do understand. I know that there were obviously there were differences. We're aware of that. But again, it's a question of exactly like the point that you've made before and right now, where, it's a question of interpretation versus a page for page adaptation. And maybe an understanding that people who are huge fans of certain classic stories
Yep.
are kind of refusing to let go of the idea
Yes.
that a modern audience may not enjoy a page for page adaptation of a more classic piece of literature and may not connect with it in the same way because it's something that was written 100 plus years ago.
Yeah.
So many times when filmmakers are choosing to take on these projects, they're also choosing to find a way to make them marketable because at the end of the day, filmmaking has to
Is to
do with
make
also making
money.
money. Like, this
Yeah.
is their job. Their job is to make money for the studios that are choosing to fund and back these projects. If they continue to do certain things and not make money for the studios, they will no longer have a job.
Well,
So,
I mean, this goes back again to what we just said at the beginning of this episode of how this all came to a screeching halt in the mid 2000 in the 2010s because
yeah,
they
there
were
was
like, "Hey,
something.
hang on a minute. This ain't going so well, so never mind. We're not going to keep throwing money at it." So,
No.
I caution people to be too critical of the adaptations because
Yeah.
like, we still like the adaptations. Even okay, if something is like a hot pile of garbage, then like, yeah, let's tear it apart. But if it's like, I, as a literature professor, do not agree with this interpretation of
Sure.
Frankenstein's monster. It's like, okay, come on
I know.
now.
I know. I get it. It's just that maybe it's because I saw like a lot of criticism
Yeah.
and a lot of complaints from people who live in more literary spaces than folks who are just watching it solely for like the filmmaking portions of it.
Mm,
But when it came out, and I was a little bit surprised that in this day and age we're still not used to the idea of someone having a particular interpretation of it.
hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, this is something that's been I don't know. I feel like we keep coming back to it and we keep talking about it and we kind of keep rehashing the same points, but it's probably because we're seeing so because of things like streaming services existing and dominating like a lot of what people are watching and stuff like that. It almost seems like the theatrical experience itself is starting to shift and change. And so there become like, it sort of begs the question of like, what will the future look like in terms of releases? Are we going to continue
Yeah.
to get these big releases? Is it something that's going to die out? I'd like to think that it's not, because personally I do enjoy the idea of having these really large scale, really expansive adaptations of stories, because I find them interesting. They're beautiful to watch most of the time, and when they're done correctly, they can be wonderful for you to see on screen.
I
So,
mean, I would actually argue that it seems like they're actually ramping up the theatrical releases a little bit more than, like, when we came out of the pandemic, there was
oh
a
god,
big gray cloud and question mark over the future of cinema.
yep.
Like, I remember like Cineplex started offering, I don't know if they still do it, but you could rent the movie at home instead of going to the movie theater to watch
Hmm.
the movie. And
Hmm.
like, I don't know if that's something that they still do. But I know that kind of raised a lot of like, well, does that mean that, they're kind of phasing out theaters? Like, what's going on? But then if you look at, like Wuthering Heights, Frankenstein, which had a limited theatrical release, but it still did have one.
Yep.
There's a number of them coming out. I mean, The Housemaid just came out. That was a theatrical release. Like, there's a
Yep.
number of them coming out that it kind of leaves me hopeful for
Yeah.
the future of movie adaptations. That being said, we had a discussion. We have an upcoming discussion about Colleen Hoover's "Regretting You,"
Oh
um,
yes.
and that's another perfect example of like, okay, so you know, um, shit, what was that one called? It ends with us. It
Yeah.
starts with us. It ends with us.
Yeah.
Which one is it?
It ends with us. This is the
It
first
ends with
one.
us. That was a theatrical release,
Yes.
big budget, blah blah blah. Regretting You flew under the radar, and then there's reminders of him coming out
In March, I think.
in
Yeah.
March. I
Yeah.
don't even know if that's theatrical release
I
or if
believe
it's.
I believe it is.
So
Yeah.
there you go. Like, so you've got like
Yeah, she's agreed
examples,
for 3, Colleen Hoover, with her theatrical releases, which is
right?
wild to me. Of all the types of cinema that we're like, I don't know if this needs a theatrical release, that's up there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well,
I know.
she's popular,
I
okay?
know.
Like,
I
what
know.
can we say? And again, we love to hate Colleen Hoover,
We do. You and I
but
sure do.
she gives us a lot of content, so we
She
should probably
does.
send her some
So maybe I
flowers or
should,
something.
yeah, so maybe I should say sorry and thank you,
But
Colleen.
that being said, like, it's kind of a toss up of what we're gonna get. Like Emily Henry's first ever adaptations coming out next week, and it's a
Yay.
series on Amazon Prime. It's Amazon Prime.
No, it's Netflix. It's a
Netflix. It's
Netflix film that
Netflix.
they're doing. Yeah,
Really?
it's a Netflix film that they're doing. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a film or a series?
No, 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 it's a movie.
Okay, well, I got the wrong information here. Hang on. There was me being all like passionate about my point, and it makes no sense here. Hang
You're
on.
so funny. No, it's a film. And it is. It's premiering on Netflix on January 9th. So we're going to be talking about it next week, because I've also, seen it, read it, I should say. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna try
yay.
and at least read some of it before it comes out to have a bit of an idea of what's going on. But yeah, what I was trying to say was like it's a total toss up of what we're gonna get from which
Yeah.
author, and it seems like it doesn't really like it has no bearing on how like popular the author is, whether they get theatrical or streaming release,
No, no, that is true. It's hard to say. Like that's it. The author's bearing doesn't necessarily mean anything. In the same way that sometimes the filmmakers don't either, right? Like you've
Hmm.
got somebody at the level that like Greta Gerwig is at, and we're getting a Chronicles of Narnia adaptation from her. My understanding is that she basically has a confirmed like universe in which she will be adapting all, what is it, 7 or 8 Chronicles of Narnia books into
Hmm.
films. This is a deal with Netflix, and so again, The Magician's Nephew, which is the first novel that was published, is getting a limited theatrical release in November, and then will be dropping on Netflix, I think, on Christmas or something.
Yeah, and like look at Frankenstein, like huge cast, Guillermo del Toro, and it was Netflix, and that had a limited theatrical release.
Yeah,
So again,
same
like,
thing this time. They're doing
yep,
it multiple times now. So
yeah. So it's almost hard to like. It used to be that you could categorize like actors and directors and like adaptations as like, okay, this one is really big, so it's going to the theater. This one's really big, so it's going to be really. Whereas now it's kind of like
Not
It's a
anymore.
free for all almost.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Between all of the different like studios and services and things like that that exist, and like the sort of streaming giants that we have now, and the the different like niches that exist in terms of readers and what they love and what they enjoy and how different that content can be, there is like no gauge anymore
No,
for
none.
it. We cannot tell.
Nope. No idea.
Yeah. Wow.
But
Anyway.
to just wrap this up,
Yeah.
do you have a preference, Megan? Movie
Ooh.
or TV show? I think I've asked you this in the past.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like you have, and I feel like I cannot come up with an answer because
No, at
the
that
problem
point.
is that every time I'd like to say something along the lines of like, well, a TV show, because it really gives the opportunity for there to be expansions of character development, this, that, and the other. I think of all of the really excellent film adaptations that exist,
Yeah.
and I think of all of the TV series, for instance, that go off the bloody rails in like, after their fourth, fifth season, where you're like, what the hell are we even doing here anymore?
Pretty
And
Little Liars.
yeah, that's it. So I'm like, so I can't help but kind of be like, I think there are merits to both. And I think it has more to do with the filmmakers and the script and the actual work that's put into adapting the novel in the first place, or novels, whatever the case may be. I think that it has more to do with that, and more to do with like, showrunners on TV series choosing to continue to follow something versus veering off into like different territory versus the actual difference between like a film and a TV show. I don't know. Yeah. Do you
Yeah.
have a preference? Do you have a preference?
I always tend to prefer the TV shows, to be honest, because I like having a little bit like more to sink my teeth into. Like
Mm,
I really like getting more time with the characters personally. Like
yeah.
there are some characters that I just like spending more time with, and
Yeah.
like sometimes a movie it and I as a rule just prefer TV shows in general for this reason. Like I
Yeah.
find that movies are very like, okay, like let's get into it, let's get the plot going. You don't get to spend as much time with the characters because like you got to get the story moving and like
Yeah.
wrapped up by the end. So I think if I were to just kind of create some sort of like arbitrary measurement, I would say for those reasons, I prefer TV shows.
Okay, that's fair. And it's understandable,
Yeah.
honestly. Again, I feel like I'd like to lean in that direction. It's just like me thinking about things and overthinking about
You're
things
like,
makes me feel like,
wait, but then there's that one. Oh,
but what
wait, but then
about
there's
all of
that one.
these? What
Yeah,
about all these great movies, and what all these about all of these terrible, terrible TV adaptations that just go off the fucking rails as time goes on? So it's hard.
totes.
Yeah, it's impossible for it to be perfect, but here we are.
Hmm.
Anyway, yeah, so obviously we've given it away, but obviously next week we're going to be taking a look at people we meet on vacation. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to that. It's Emily Henry's first adaptation that's being
Woo.
made. She has, my understanding, she's got multiple that have been secured and are probably on their way. And I'm sure based on
Nice.
the success of people we meet on vacation, that will probably determine a couple of them as well, to a degree.
So watch it because we want more.
Because we want more of that. We want more maybe decent contemporary romance with good leads.
Agree.
And hopefully I can agree with that again next week after we watch the movie.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, in the meantime, obviously you can follow everything we have going on over on our socials at fullybookedca. Check us out on all platforms. Check out our website at fullybooked.ca. We've got reviews. Hopefully I'll have a review for How to Lose a Goblin in 10 Days coming everybody's way pretty soon because it's so fun. But in the meantime, guys, keep on reading.
Thanks, everyone.